Welcome to React Native Radio Podcast. Brought to you by your boy Jed, taking over Todd's job one tiny piece at a time. Episode 268, Expo SDK 48.
Hey Mazen, do you play an instrument?
Currently, no, but I used to play one in high school.
What did you play?
What type of instrument person do I seem like?
You seem like a trombone person, if I'm being honest.
Spot on.
I don't know if that's because you told me before and subconsciously I remembered it, but you just seem like a trombone person.
I may have mentioned it. I'm not sure. Let's see here. I also, early on, when I was, I don't even know, I think maybe like elementary school. I think all parents kind of go through this too, where my parents wanted me to play the piano, but it got to a point where it was like, I honestly think it was like day of recital. And I was like, you know what? I really don't like this. So I'm not going to go in front of everybody. So even though my name's on the thing and you guys came for this thing, I'm not going to it.
That's hardcore.
So I just didn't show up to it. I just stayed
Mic
in the
drop.
classroom. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah. But in high school, we had to do music for, I think it was one class. And
Oh, you had to?
yeah, music was like a requirement in high school.
That's wild. My school districts never had the budget for that.
Mm-hmm.
So not only was it like opt-in, but usually there was like lots of fees associated with it because they didn't have enough money to fund everything. But yeah, I was an orchestra dork and a choir kid in high school.
What's your instrument?
I played the cello for a long time. Played the piano for a couple of years as a kid, but cello was my primary instrument. And recently, I am the proud new owner of a ukulele, which I'm very excited about. I wanted to like play again, but getting a cello out and playing it is a whole thing. You need a lot of space. You need it's hard to just like pick it up and like play for 10 minutes. So I wanted something that I could just like noodle around on in my spare moments. So I got a ukulele for my birthday and I'm super excited.
That's awesome. That's quite the size change too, because from a cello, you kind of need like almost two people to carry it around. To one you could almost put in your back pocket. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I got very good at carrying my cello around by myself. My case had a backpack. It was like, so I looked pretty dorky walking around my high school with a cello on my back. But
yeah. Wasn't this Hawaiian guy, Israel, and I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah. The Somewhere Over the Rainbow,
Yes.
What a Wonderful World.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That was like the only reason I liked the ukulele, because of that song, I think.
It's a very good song. It's one of my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that like you can play on ukulele that you would also play on guitar. It's just like a smaller, cuter sound. But I've been having fun with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe one day you should open up the music to React Native Radio with your ukulele.
Maybe I could have Derek compose something.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Greenberg is our guest coordinator, if you recognize his name from the credits, but he's also a avid musician and composer.
Yeah.
So it would be fun to have him write something and then I could learn to play it.
That would be cool.
We'll see if we can make it happen. All right, let's get on to our episode today. Before we get started, I need to mention that this episode is sponsored by Infinite Red, your favorite premier React Native design and development agency located fully remote in the US and Canada. So if you're looking for React Native expertise for your next React Native project, hit us up at infinitered/React Native. So let's get to our topic for today, embarking on Expo SDK 48. If you don't know, or if you've been living under a rock, Expo is one of the most common ways to build React Native apps these days. So we put Expo SDK releases right up there with React Native releases, especially because they usually go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So we're going to walk through the new features in this new Expo SDK and tell you how to upgrade. And if you're not using Expo, why not? Why are you not using Expo? You probably should be.
It makes life easy.
Mazen, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. So The first one is Hermes is now the default JavaScript engine. This has been around for a little bit in vanilla React Native. So now, everything we've talked about starts off with the React Native upgrade, and then eventually the next one just kind of catches up essentially. So 47, it was announced that it would be coming in 48. So now it's officially here. And it's in place of the JavaScript core, the JSC.
Does that just come with this SDK version because of the React Native version that is coming with, like, this SDK is upgrading to React Native 71.3. Is this change something that is just along for the ride with the new React Native version, or is it something that Expo is doing specifically? I feel like it's just coming with the React Native version, but
correct. Yes, I think it comes along, and then Expo does the what they need to do under the hood to link over to Hermes to get that default setup. So yeah, because it was enabled in 71.3 in React Native, so now Expo is just kind of exposing that flag.
I'm guessing that we're almost to the point where we'll stop hearing about Hermes because it's on, it's default. Everyone will be using it. It won't even be a thing that we talk about anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's so much better than JSC, what they had in the past. So, yep, Hermes is the default now. And that goes right along with React Native 71 and also React 18.2. Those are the two major version bumps in this SDK release. We did an entire episode on React Native 71, but just to give a quick recap of the highlights there's a bunch of new Flexbox properties in this version of React Native, like gap, row gap, and column gap, which is huge. Yeah. If you've ever tried to make any kind of grid layout in Flexbox before, you know what a big deal those are. So
it's so much better than the flex and space between and this and that. I love it.
A bunch of web-inspired accessibility props were added to sort of combine the web and React Native APIs to make them a lot more similar. JSON parse got performance improvements. TypeScript is the default now, so you no longer have to add the types package. And a bunch of other stuff that you can refer to in our episode on React Native 71. But now that's supported and included in Expo.
Yeah. The next one up is the Android Compile SDK version, the Target SDK version. Sets the API to 33. So basically all that means is as new, kind of similar like iOS versions come out, we need to upgrade our Android targets. So now the target's being moved up. So low, I think this is actually a good one because we're in April as we're recording this, but as of August 1st, all your new app submissions need to target this level. So it's a requirement by Google and Android where you need to hit this level. And then as of whenever November 1st rolls around, all new apps that are joining the App Store need to have this target level. So
right. August is new apps and November is new updates to existing apps.
Yeah.
So you will not be able to push updates to your app unless you're on 33 starting in November.
If you're listening to this episode and you're not ready to go to 48, you might as well, in the background, upgrade the level 33 so you can keep submitting your app.
Correct.
The next one is pretty interesting because I feel like this should have been a feature there in the beginning, but you can now enable RTL from your app.json file or, app.config.js file for Expo Go. So usually you would, have your own context or something like that to house if your app is RTL. Well, now you just kind of put it in your JSON file and then it'll automatically support RTL for you. So I think this is just an interesting where you have to add that flag to be able to do RTL apps with this new version. In the past, you had to manually hook it up and set it up. So now Expo does the lifting for you.
And that's specifically in Expo Go.
Expo Go, yes.
If you were using Bear or previously, ejected is not the terminology they use anymore, but if you were using Bear, you were able to support right to left, but now it's supported in Expo Go.
Yeah. And EAS build, pre-build, Expo pre-build. Those are also part of it. Yeah. This is also exposed to that too.
Well, that's awesome. The next one in the list is support for the new architecture / fabric renderer is now in all Expo packages except for Expo Dev Client. I don't know why Expo Dev Client is the exception, but all your Expo packages now will support the new architecture. That doesn't mean they recommend the new architecture yet. That's a really important caveat. And the other caveat is that Expo Go does not support the new architecture. But if you're doing bare workflow, you can, and you're feeling adventurous, you can enable the new architecture and all Expo packages are compatible. They make it pretty clear that they're not recommending it yet because there's still quite a number of issues with other third-party modules and things like that. So only if you're feeling adventurous and ready to tackle whatever comes up.
Yeah, we're still a ways out for this being like Hermes will soon be a thing of the past. We're still very far in the very far distant future.
But like, I mean, stuff like this is like a good indicator that like the ball is moving.
Yeah, the gap is being closed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Adoption is happening gradually, and there is a future for the new architecture.
Some third-party packages have already released their versions that are new architecture, like reanimated. V3 is now the default in NPM. So there we go.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening little by little.
So the next one is a package has been deprecated from Expo. It's Expo-random. It's random because it's now redundant with the new package Expo-crypto. So Expo crypto has get random values, random UUID, and digest functions are what they're called. So basically for crypto related stuff. And then the random UUIDs, that whole like UUID v4 package that we used to install specifically for that. So you would now kind of it looks weird to me if you were to Expo crypto to get that random UUID, but it's all now in that one package.
Side note about UUIDs. I've spent a lot of time recently adding devices to our Apple provisioning profiles for EAS build. And the amount of times I think it's UUID instead of UDID. Yeah. Like for iOS devices, your device identifier is called a UDID, which stands for Universal Device Identifier something.
Mm-hmm. I always thought
I don't know what the other D is. I guess it's ID, like identifier.
Yeah.
But I always say UUID, which is different, but they're annoyingly similar.
Universal your identifier?
I don't even know what does UUID stand for.
Universally unique identifier.
Universally unique identifier. Okay.
That makes sense. I always thought they were the same thing, but that makes sense. UUID.
They are not. Yeah. UDIDs are their own format.
Yeah. Okay.
And another fun fact, the format of UDIDs changed around the iPhone 10R.
Or 10, yeah.
So the iPhone 10 had the old format, which looked more like a standard UUID.
Yeah.
If I remember right. And then they changed the format for later iPhones.
I'm cleaning up my office because I'm moving to a new location in the house. And I dug up a drum roll, please.
Okay, drum roll.
iPhone 3G.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
It was tiny.
No way. That's from like 2009, 2010?
I don't even know. Steve Jobs was still around.
Do you have it with you?
I do. It's in the closet right now.
Oh, okay.
I'll bring it up after recording.
You should post a picture of that in our Slack because I think everyone would get a kick out of that.
But when I was registering my 7 Plus so I could test the app for Chain React, the UDID was different than everybody else's. I'm like, well, this is not right. So I kept digging, and then eventually
I did the same thing.
This is right.
With a client who, one of our client team people was registering his device, and it was an iPhone 10, and he sent me the UDID, and I was like, this doesn't seem like the right.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you sure you got the right? He's like, yes, I did it right. And he screenshotted it for me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
He's like, are you sure?
Anyway, yes, Expo Random is now part of Expo Crypto. They are one and the same. Expo Random is deprecated.
Yeah, and as part of that, Expo Modules API has been improved, And my guess what that really means is they added support for Swift concurrency, it says, with async and await functions. So some of the value, like get random values and digest functions, needed async and await to be awaited. So I think that's, improved upon at this point.
In the release blog post, they also announced sort of some updates or some new versions of Expo. I'm going to call them Expo adjacent libraries, not the SDK itself, but kind of sort of companion libraries, specifically Expo Image. Version 1.0 was released. So like inaugural stable release of Expo Image, which if you haven't heard of Expo Image, it's a cross-platform React component that loads and renders images and is designed for speed and also supports a lot of modern image formats like GIFs and other, I don't know what all formats
It's
exactly
like
it includes, but
HEIC. So it's
right, like the iPhone live
images on
photos,
iPhone.
yeah.
WebP,
which is
stuff like that.
awesome. I know a lot of people in the community have been using React Native Fast Image recently in place of the out-of-the-box image component, but not too long ago, the maintainer announced that they're not maintaining it anymore. It was just like one person. It wasn't an organization maintaining it. So the community really came together and Expo said, hey, we're going to take this on. And so Expo Image was born and it's very, very exciting and I'm excited to use it. So that Expo Image is released and is now also available in Expo Go. I think that's new with SDK 48 is that being included with Expo Go. And then the other one is Expo Router, which we had Evan Bacon on the show a while back. We'll link the episode in the show notes. But Expo Router version 1.0 was also released. It's a file system-based routing API that is built on top of React Navigation, which is also React Navigation is also one of Expo's libraries. Very pervasive. Almost everyone I know uses React Navigation, but this is built on top of that. But it lets you like define your app routes by just like nesting in your folder structure. And it's intended to be very compatible with web so that your linking strategy lines up between your web app and your mobile app. We're actually trying it out on my current project at the moment, and it's pretty slick.
Yeah. I messed around with it not too long ago with our Expo advocate, Frank Calise.
Hi, Frank.
It does also come by default in the tabs template. It caught me off guard because I installed it and I was trying to use React Navigation functions and then just realized that something was off and then saw that the router stuff was there. So it comes by
if
default.
you use the template, if you pass -- template tabs to npx create Expo app, then you will get Expo Router by default.
For SDK 48 and above. Yeah.
A note on Expo Router, it is still in its early days. They are actively soliciting feedback and they give a disclaimer that it might not work perfectly for every use case, but they want people to try it and use it and give feedback on what their experiences were. They really want to make this work well enough to be like the new standard. They really believe in file system based routing. So yeah, if you haven't already listened to it, check out our episode about Expo Router with Evan Bacon.
So next one is EAS builds. So we've mentioned it before. I believe we had an episode.
We also did an entire episode about EAS. We like Expo around here.
So the couple additions here, now by default for iOS, you get the M1 worker. If you have tried to build an EAS app on your Intel, like I used to do in the past, it takes a long time. A very long time. If you have an infant, it's like perfect time to like go change a diaper, put him to sleep, type deal. But with the M1 now and getting access to this flag, it is super fast and totally worth it. So double advert there for EAS build and an M1.
And the M1. Yeah. We were using the M1 workers when they were still like experimental, and the difference in build speed is wild.
Yeah.
It is definitely noticeable. And now everyone gets M1s because they're the default.
It's like I have that Oprah episode in my head. You get an M1 worker. You get an M1 worker.
Everybody gets an M1 worker.
Okay, back to the next one.
This one, I am so excited about this. There's a new command in the EAS CLA called build resign. And if you've used EAS for internal distribution builds and have had to add people's devices manually, and you get maybe like, you'll get one person who gives you their device, and then 2 days later, you'll get another person, and then like 4 hours later, you'll get another person. But you've had to do like new builds every time you add a new device because it needs to like like add the device to the profile, the provisioning profile, and then rebuild. Now you can re-sign an existing build instead of having to wait for an all new build, which also has the advantage of not like making, like if you have a current build, it doesn't become obsolete just because like, oh, now this one person can't install that build because their device isn't. You can just like re-sign it. So useful. Very
useful. This would have saved me so much time trying to figure out why people couldn't install the Chain React app locally all of last week.
You're like, are you clicking the right link? Are you trying to install the right build? Did I even kick off a new build?
I felt bad just being like, hey, I linked to the document on like the instructions to follow. Did you follow them? Like, I know they did, but do you mind double checking? And it's like, okay, hold on. Let me do a new build. Yeah. Next one is EAS build run.
It's basically a convenience.
Yeah. Download simulator builds and run them in one command. That's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
You used to have to like fetch the simulator build.
Yeah.
And then another command to run it. And now it's in one command. So very convenient. It saves you.
All for convenience.
Save you like 10 seconds.
Yeah. A big one with this release is they've dropped support for SDK 45. And there's a note in here. So we're in 48 and they dropped 45. So 46 and 47. So last two are basically supported. But with the next one, they're dropping 46 and 47 and going to just one level down of support.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're not supporting as many past versions.
No. So 45 is officially dropped as of 48. And with 49, 46, and 47 will be dropped. And it kind of makes sense because this release does feel like a tighter loop away from a lot of old architecture related stuff, right? It's, we mentioned the new architecture stuff. We mentioned Hermes, the update in the Android SDK versions. With all that being said, like I feel like this point of 48 does seem like a good, like moving forward. Like we mentioned, like React Native 71 was like a good, like, was it 71? No, 70 was like a good, like, okay, new architecture, React 18, moving forward type deal. This is almost seems the same here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are pretty much all the highlights. So if you want to use Expo SDK 48, upgrading is super easy. NPX Expo. So you change the version and then install dependencies. Expo install -- fix to upgrade your Expo dependencies. And then Expo Doctor to check for incompatibilities. And then make sure to read through the release notes for deprecations, renamings, removals, other breaking changes. And then either run Expo Go or run pre-build. Also make sure to upgrade your Expo Go app if you're using Expo Go and rebuild your app. And that's pretty much it.
Seems very straightforward.
It's very straightforward. If for some reason you're not using pre-build, you would still have to go through and do the React Native upgrade helper. But if you're not using pre-build, why are you not using pre-build?
Exactly.
It's very, very nice. So yeah, Expo SDK 48. That's all we got.
Well, there's one more thing I wanted to bring up. I wish Jamin was here to kind of talk about this, but that's fine. One like hidden nugget in it. I don't know if it was there before, but I just noticed it. Frank pointed it out again. If you were to do a new build, a new app with Expo 48 in TypeScript with the TypeScript template, TypeScript strict mode is now true by default. I'm a huge fan of it. I like strict typing. I don't know why.
I really want to hear Jamin's reaction to that.
Yeah, exactly. I should have saved it for him on here, but that's fine. I guess I get to now say like all that I think about and just sell it to everybody before Jamin comes back. But yeah, I really do think it helps a lot. I think we do not have it on in Chain React right now, but I just find myself automatically adding types and being strict on it myself. And it does help my personal workflow, I think.
Any.
Yeah, whenever I see an any, I just like shake a little bit, but it's fine. Yeah, I also think it helps a lot when you're working with clients that are new to TypeScript. It kind of helps keep them lined up, and I also think in a hard way it teaches TypeScript. I know sometimes it feels like you're kind of shoving types down their throat, but at the end of the day,
when you have to type everything, you learn how to type things really fast.
Exactly. I love it. Yeah. I mean, TypeScript, the latest version of TypeScript, I forget what number it's on now. It does a pretty good job of like type inferring. So you don't have to really worry about the type inference part. I think it's 5. But with strict mode on, some of the stuff that you type, if you type it, it just makes it easier. And I keep saying it, all those random unit tests of like checking a function, if you pass in a number when it's expecting a string.
You never have to do it anymore.
You don't have to do any of that anymore. Like it does those little tests for you. Let me see if I can get this right. Jamin's phrase is something along the lines of if the JavaScript is working for you, there's no need to type strong. So if you find bugs, you need strict typing. With a client, I did notice a lot of bugs that were coming in that TypeScript would have solved. So I kind of recommended that, and it did help. It reduced the bugs a lot. So use it with discretion. I think it's helpful. And if you're new to TypeScript, I think it'll help a lot.
Well, clearly you're not alone in your opinion because Expo has just turned it on by default.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
All right. That's our show for today. If you'd like to nerd out more about React Native, make sure to check out our Slack community.infinite.red. You can also check out Jamin's Twitch stream, although he hasn't streamed in a while, but I'm sure he will again. rn.live or youtube.infinite.red, or our Twitter community, rntwitter.infinite.red. You can find Mazen at Mazen Chami on Twitter. You can find me at Robin_Hines and React Native Radio at React Native RDIO. As always, thanks to our producer and editor, Todd Worth, our assistant editor and episode release coordinator, Jed Bartosky, our designer, Justin Husky, and our guest coordinator, Derek Greenberg, and of course, our resident Expo expert and advocate, Frank Calise.
Yep.
Thanks to our sponsor, Infinite Red. Check out Infinite Red at infinite.red/React Native. And thanks to all of you for listening today. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I do have a mom joke.
Yes, let's hear it.
If you have time.
Oh, I have time. I only hear my son screaming in the background, but I have time.
Credit goes to the king of dad jokes at Infinite Red, Carlin Isaacson. I used to be a personal trainer, but I had to put in my 2-week notice.
That's a good one.
Thanks, Carlin, for the joke. We'll see you all next time.